Picture this. It is the year 2080. A student in your school is doing a history exam question about your life right now. What will that student know about you? Your social media posts, your chat history, your school results, your photos, even some of your thoughts and opinions. That future student is doing history. The people who dig through your evidence to tell your story are historians. In this video, you will see what history really is and how historians actually work. Stay until the end because this is exactly what your source-based questions are testing. You might think history is just memorizing dates and names. 1942, Japanese occupation, Stanford Raffles. But that is not what real history is. Real history is about asking good questions about the past, finding clues called sources, and building a reasonable explanation. So what is history in simple words? History is studying the past, asking clear questions, gathering evidence, and using that evidence to build strong arguments. That's what historians do. And when you answer source-based questions, you are practicing these same skills. Why do we study history at all? First, it helps us understand how Singapore and the rest of the world ended up the way they are today. Second, we learn from past mistakes and successes, especially in areas like defense and racial harmony. Third, history trains us to think carefully about information, so we do not just believe everything we see online. To study the past, historians need clues. These clues are called sources. A source is any piece of evidence about the past. A source can be written, like letters, newspapers, or official records. It can also be non-written, like photographs, videos, objects, buildings, or interviews with people. Sources can be grouped into two main types, primary and secondary. A primary source is created during the time you are studying. For example, a newspaper from 1942, or a photo taken during the Japanese occupation. A secondary source is created later by someone looking back and explaining the event. For example, your textbook or a documentary that talks about the Japanese occupation. Here is a way to think about it. Imagine you post a TikTok today, in the year 2026. That post is a primary source for your life in 2026. But in the year 2035, a filmmaker makes a documentary about your generation. They use your TikTok as evidence. For that documentary, your TikTok becomes one of the sources they are using to study the past. So how do historians actually work? They follow three big steps. Step 1, they collect sources from archives, libraries, museums, and online collections. Step 2, they question those sources to check how reliable they are. Step 3, they put the evidence together to build an explanation of what happened and why. This explanation is called an interpretation. Step 1 is collecting sources. Historians do not just grab one source and stop. They search in many different places. They look in archives, in libraries, in museums, and in online collections. They try to find different types of sources about the same event, so they do not depend on only one person's point of view. Step 2 is questioning the sources. Historians do not just believe everything they see. They ask 4 key questions. Who created this source? When and where was it made? Why was it created? And who was it made for? These questions help historians decide how reliable a source is and what the source is useful for. Step 3 is building an explanation. Historians compare different sources. They decide which sources are more reliable. Then they link the evidence together into a story that explains what happened and why it happened. This final story, built from evidence, is called an interpretation. Now, how does all this link to your source-based questions? When you answer an inference question, you are doing the same kind of thinking that historians do. Here is a simple 3-step method. Step 1, describe what you can see in the source. Step 2, suggest what this tells you about life, people, or events at that time. Step 3, link your point clearly back to the question. For reliability and purpose questions, you are also thinking like a historian. You ask, who created this source, why they created it, and how that might affect what they say. A source can still be useful even if it is biased, as long as you explain what it is useful for and what it cannot tell you. You might wonder if historians follow the same steps. Why do they sometimes disagree? One reason is that new sources can be discovered, which change our understanding. Another reason is that historians might focus on different parts of the story, or ask different questions. This kind of disagreement is normal in history, as long as each interpretation is supported by solid evidence. Let us recap. History is the study of the past using sources to explain what happened and why it happened. Historians collect sources, question them, and then build explanations, which we call interpretations. When you answer source-based questions in school, you are practicing these same skills. Save this video, and next watch the short video on how to do an inference in 30 seconds. Then download the checklist and try it for yourself.